In this video, we're going to be taking a look at one of the most respected people in the UFO research community, Dr. Jacques Vallée. Jacques Vallée began his career as a respected French computer scientist and astronomer, and he even helped map Mars and develop ARPANET, a precursor to the internet. He initially did not think the UFO phenomena was real and chose to focus on the traditional sciences of his age, but through a series of events that happened while he was working as an astronomer for the French Space Committee, France's NASA equivalent, he became interested in pursuing the UFO phenomena. Since then, Jacques Vallée has spent over a half-century researching and writing about the UFO phenomena. During this time, his views have varied as to what he thinks it is. Jacques' background as a respectable scientist gives him a lot of credibility in the UFO community, often cited as one of its pioneers. He even was the inspiration for French ufologists Claude Lecompte and Steven Spielberg's Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Allergies.
Des brûlures sur le visage et sur le corps?
And burning on your face and on your body?
Yes.
So who is Jacques Vallée? Where does he come from? What research has he done? What are his beliefs? Let's find out and take a closer look at Dr. Jacques Vallée.
That are physical, that interact with the environment, that cause effects on the witnesses, on the psychology and the physiology of the witnesses, and leave traces on the ground, and yet appear to be capable of manipulating time and space in ways that go beyond what our physics understands today.
Jacques Vallée was born on September 24, 1939, in a town called Pontoise, France, just 20 miles north of Paris. This was less than a year before the Nazis would invade the country during World War II. He lived the first portion of his life under Nazi occupation. In a post-war Europe, he would prove himself as a capable student, excelling in math and science. He completed undergraduate studies in mathematics at the University of Paris in 1959, and received the equivalent of an MS in astrophysics from the University of Lille Nord de France in 1961. And that same year, he began to work as an astronomer for the Paris Observatory. It was here that Jacques' views on the UFO phenomena began to take shape. He had first seen a UFO a few years earlier in Pontoise in 1955, above his home, but at the time he thought it was maybe a secret government aircraft. However, while working for the French Space Committee in 1961, he and his team began tracking an unknown object in Earth's orbit. The particular object was a retrograde satellite, a satellite orbiting the Earth in the opposite direction to the Earth's rotation. At the time he observed this, there were no rockets powerful enough to launch such a satellite, so the team was quite excited as they assumed the Earth's gravity had captured a natural satellite. He then claims that an unnamed superior came and erased the tapes of the unknown object orbiting the Earth, and was never given an explanation as to why this occurred. This event sparked Jacques' interest in the UFO phenomena, which he now viewed as an actual occurrence. For the remainder of his life, he would pursue investigating the UFO phenomena while still maintaining a prominent voice in the computer science and astronomy worlds. In 1963, Vallée relocated to Chicago, Illinois. He worked as a systems analyst at nearby Northwestern University, while continuing to pursue UFO research with his mentor and later friend, Dr. J. Allen Hynek, the chair of the university's astronomy department. J. Allen Hynek is widely considered the father of the concept of scientific analysis both of reports and especially of trace evidence purportedly left by UFOs. Hynek acted as scientific advisor to UFO studies undertaken by the U.S. Air Force under 3 consecutive projects: Project Sign, Project Grudge, and Project Blue Book. Hynek claims that during these official government studies, he was forced to debunk cases that were clearly anomalous UFO encounters. And later he conducted his own independent UFO research, developing the Close Encounter classification system. During the early 1960s, Jacques Vallée received a PhD in industrial engineering and computer science from Northwestern University. He also began seriously researching and writing about the UFO phenomena. By 1966, Vallée had written his first 2 books on the UFO phenomena: Challenge to Science, The UFO Enigma, and Anatomy of a Phenomenon, Unidentified Objects in Space, A Scientific Appraisal. In these books, Vallée attempted to introduce a more scientific approach to the public for the first time. Vallée had observed that UFO sighting reports come in waves, specific both in time period and geographical distribution. These books detailed evidence of the reality of UFO-type phenomena throughout history and into modern times. Like many ufologists of his time, Vallée believed that the Earth was being visited by extraterrestrial aliens in the classic biology-based view on the phenomena, in which the scientific community would take it more seriously. By 1969, his views on the phenomena would change from that of the extraterrestrial hypothesis, which claimed a more technologically advanced species was visiting Earth, almost similar to Europe's discovery of the Americas, and began to lean towards the interdimensional hypothesis, which claims that there is an intelligence behind the phenomena that exists in a separate reality or dimension not yet understood by our current scientific capabilities. He argues that the extraterrestrial hypothesis is too narrow in scope. In 1969, he released one of his most popular books, Passport to Magonia, on UFOs, folklore, and parallel worlds. In this book, he explores common themes throughout history of sightings and abductions that seem to resemble modern UFO reports. Vallée compares UFO abductions to the tales of old Celtic traditions, in which fairies would abduct people, lead them to an area with many small entities huddled around them, and perform experiments and touch them, leaving the victim with missing time and strange marks on their body. Vallée also began comparing many of the encounters ancient religions claim to have had with their deities, whether it be Christian apparitions of Jesus or the Virgin Mary in the sky, reports of airships in the Middle Ages, the tales of demonic succubi and incubi, the fairies of old Celtic tradition, and even Roman and Greek encounters with their gods. Jacques Vallée was one of the first ufologists to focus on interviewing hundreds of witnesses from all over the world. He would find people who claimed to have had UFO encounters and would interview them about their experiences. Jacques would only meet with the witnesses that were not a big news story, as he felt it would interfere with the research, and he would only meet witnesses who had agreed to maintain contact for many years so he could assess the effects of UFO encounters over time. By interviewing countless witnesses he felt were credible, he came to view the behavior of UFO encounters as something more than biological, distorting time and space in ways not known by our current science. These UFOs can move through walls, alter people's perceptions of reality, and act in many more anomalous ways that seem to exist beyond a strictly extraterrestrial explanation. This idea was a break from the mainstream ufologist who viewed the phenomena as a strictly biological one. Because of this, he was ostracized by much of the UFO community at the time, and he referred to himself as a heretic among heretics. Also in 1969, Vallée joined the Stanford University Computer Center as manager of information systems. Here he worked on developing ARPANET, the first network that allowed computers to communicate with each other. The first message on ARPANET was sent from UCLA to the Stanford Research Institute on October 29, 1969. ARPANET would eventually connect over 20 computers throughout the country, and eventually transform into the Internet. As a result of his time with the Stanford Research Institute, Vallée became friends with Hal Puthoff and CIA analyst Kit Green, who obtained Vallée a temporary security clearance in 1974. Vallée was intermittently consulted on classified remote viewing research throughout the 1970s and 1980s. In 1975, Jacques Vallée released another book on the phenomena called The Invisible College. In this book, he first describes what he refers to as the control system. According to Vallée, UFOs and other related phenomena are the means through which man's concepts are being rearranged. Their ultimate source may be unknowable, at least at this stage of human development. What we do know, according to Vallée, is that they are presenting us with continually reoccurring absurd messages and appearances which defy rational analysis, but which nonetheless address human beings on the level of myth and imagination. Vallée says, "When I speak of a control system for planet Earth, I do not want my words to be misunderstood. I do not mean that some higher order of beings has locked us inside the constraints of a space-bound jail, closely monitored by psychic entities we might call angels or demons. I do not propose to redefine God. What I do mean is that mythology rules at a level of our social reality over which normal political and intellectual action has no power."
Close encounters of the first kind. Sighting of an unidentified flying object. Close encounters of the second kind. Physical evidence of a UFO. Close encounters of the third kind. Actual contact. Columbia Pictures, in association with EMI, presents Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
In 1977, Vallée served as the real-life model for Lacombe, the researcher portrayed by Francois Truffaut in Steven Spielberg's Close Encounters of the Third Kind. For this movie, Steven Spielberg consulted both Vallée and Hynek about the UFO phenomena. Vallée also attempted to interest Spielberg in an alternative explanation for the phenomena. Vallée said, "I argued with Spielberg that the subject was even more interesting if it wasn't extraterrestrials, if it was real, physical, but not ET. Spielberg told Vallée, "You're probably right, but that's not what the public is expecting. This is Hollywood, and I want to give people something that's close to what they expect." In 1978, Jacques Vallée was a member of a UFO panel that discussed the reality of the UFO phenomena at the United Nations. This group included astronaut Gordon Cooper, astronomer Jacques Vallée, astronomer Claude Poer, astronomer J. Allen Hynek, Grenada Prime Minister Sir Eric Gowrie, Morton Glasner of the Special Political Committee, Lee Spiegel, researcher Leonard Stringfield, and University of Colorado psychologist David Saunders. Between 1989 and 1991, Jacques Vallée released the trilogy Dimensions, Confrontations, and Revelations. In these books, Jacques explores more ideas relating to the anomalous nature of the UFO phenomena. In Dimensions, Vallée re-examines the historical record that led to the modern UFO phenomena and to the belief in alien contact. He then tackles the enigma of abduction reports, which come from various times in various countries, as well as the psychic and spiritual components of the contact experience. In the last portion of the book, he notes the factors that inhibit research into the phenomena, the triple cover-up and political motivations, and concludes that the extraterrestrial theory is simply not strange enough to explain the facts. In Confrontations, Vallée personally investigates 40 astonishing UFO cases from around the world. He finds it shocking that professional scientists have never seriously examined this material. This book is about the hopes, experiences, and the frustrations of a scientist who has gone into the field to investigate a bizarre, seductive, and often terrifying phenomena reported by many witnesses as a contact with an anomalous form of intelligence. Vallée also connects the UFO phenomena to consciousness, stating, "My own private conjecture, which deviates considerably from the accepted dogma among UFO believers, is that we are dealing with a yet unrecognized level of consciousness independent of man, but closely linked to the Earth." In Revelations, Vallée presents startling evidence that well-constructed hoaxes and media manipulations have misled UFO researchers, diverting them from the UFO phenomena itself. Vallée takes readers step by step into the tangled web of ufology's dark side, in an effort to clear the ever-thickening underbrush that has obscured the reality of the nature of the UFO phenomena. He also continues to link the anomalous nature of UFOs to consciousness and straying away from the strictly extraterrestrial hypothesis, stating, "In many close encounters and abduction reports, witnesses are exposed to contact with a form of consciousness that modern science simply does not yet fully understand." He also states, "The simple truth is this: there is a form of life and consciousness that operates on properties of spacetime we have not yet discovered. Then it does not have to be extraterrestrial. It could come from any place and any time, even from our own environment." Vallée's opposition to the extraterrestrial hypothesis is summarized in his paper, 5 Arguments Against the Extraterrestrial Origin of Unidentified Flying Objects, from 1990's Journal of Scientific Exploration. The 5 arguments are as follows. 1. Unexplained close encounters are far more numerous than required for any physical survey of the Earth. 2. The humanoid body structure of the alleged aliens is not likely to have originated on another planet and is not biologically adapted to space travel. 3. The reported behavior in thousands of abduction reports contradicts the hypothesis of genetic or scientific experimentation on humans by an advanced race. 4. The extension of the phenomena throughout recorded human history demonstrates that UFOs are not a contemporary phenomena. And 5. The apparent ability of UFOs to manipulate space and time suggests radically different and richer alternatives. Recently, Vallée has been associated with Robert Bigelow as a consultant to the National Institute for Discovery Science and a member of the Scientific Advisory Board of Bigelow Aerospace. Robert Bigelow is a billionaire who is the richest man in history to publicly fund UFO and paranormal research. He is also a close friend of U.S. Senator Harry Reid, who initiated funding for the Pentagon's UFO investigation program, and it is rumored that his company Bigelow Aerospace contracts a lot of UFO-related work from the U.S. government to get around Freedom of Information laws. Much of Jacques Vallée's largest contributions to ufology can be traced to his books, which he wrote on the subject during the 60s through the 90s. The thoughts presented in these books, though part of common UFO discussion today, were revolutionary at the time and greatly expanded the scope of UFO research and the UFO hypothesis. Equally important, Jacques Vallée's method of meeting with witnesses has been adopted by many ufologists today, allowing researchers to study the phenomena as thoroughly as possible. In Vallée's own words, "The UFO phenomena exist. It has been with us throughout history. It is physical in nature and remains unexplained in terms of current engineering science, or represents a level of consciousness that we have not yet recognized, and which is able to manipulate dimensions beyond time and space as we understand them. It affects our own consciousness in ways that we do not grasp fully, and it generally behaves as a control system, because it can manipulate our consciousness in unknown ways. The phenomena is also provided effects that we can only interpret as paranormal in nature."
Les théories prosaïques par les théories classiques. Ma conviction personnelle, que je ne peux pas nécessairement prouver devant la Sorbonne, c'est qu'en plus de ce niveau physique de ce phénomène, et qu'il existe une dimension spirituelle, que le phénomène est contrôlé par une forme de conscience, probablement une conscience non humaine.